Hey guys, it's Eric at Solution Prep with a little longer video for you today. I want to talk about one of the biggest changes coming to the new digital SAT. Back in 2022, the College Board, that's the folks who make the SAT and a number of other products, announced that the SAT would become a totally digital test effective March of 2023 in other countries and March of 2024 right here in America, with the PSAT adjusting the October beforehand to align with that new digital test in each respective country in each respective school year. Now, what that means is that every other country has already had the first digital PSAT last October and started doing the totally digital SAT this past March, whereas here in America, we'll have our first digital PSAT this coming October, followed in March by our first digital SAT. Some of my students have even been invited already to take the digital SAT as part of an experiment. Now, this new digital SAT is not going to be optional. If you're taking the SAT, it's going to be digital unless your student has a testing accommodation for a paper-based test. And there are going to be a lot of changes, and I am going to make more videos about it. But maybe the most noticeable change is instead of 3 hours of testing material plus an experimental section, it's going to be 2 hours of testing material with experimental questions woven in. And so a lot of people start saying the same thing they say every time the test changes, which is, so it's going to be an easier test. And obviously, it's not going to be an easier test. This will be my third time going through a big test change to my fourth iteration of the SAT since I started teaching this test so many years ago. And every time people think it's going to get easier. So think about that. Let's just follow that thread to its logical conclusion. If you think it's going to be easier, so your student will get a higher score, so then they can get into a better college, which means those colleges are accepting just way more students. And obviously, that's not what's going to happen. And in fact, the College Board has confirmed this will definitely not happen. They've assured colleges that the concordance table will not change. So 1,000 will still mean 1,000, 1,200 will still mean 1,200, 1,400 will still mean 1,400 because students are still being compared to everyone else taking the test that day. It's a zero-sum game. So for some scores to go up, other scores have to come down. That's how this test has worked, and that's how this test will continue to work. So how are they going to get a meaningful result out of 2 hours of testing instead of 3? This is the big change I want to talk to you about today. It's called multi-stage adaptive testing. So each student's going to get 2 reading and writing sections and 2 math sections. And in the first section of each, they're going to get a combination of easy and medium and difficult questions. And how they perform in that will determine their score bracket, their track. Meaning if they do well in the first section, they're tracked for a higher bracket of scores. If they do poorly in the first section, they'll be tracked for a lower bracket of possible scores. Then, in that second section, students tracked higher will get harder questions, and students tracked lower will get easier questions to determine where within the bracket their final score officially belongs. So a lot of students are going to walk out of that test feeling good, saying it was easy because they were getting easier questions and therefore likely got a lower score. And a lot of other students are going to walk out of that test feeling, oh my goodness, that was so hard because they were getting tougher questions and therefore likely got a higher test score. Now, every time the test changes, people have to write brand new curriculum. Everybody's got to do it. I've got to do it. Everybody's got to do it. And when the SAT changed last time, it was my son's junior year. And the decision I made was to make sure my son was done testing on the old test so that he was not a guinea pig for the new test. And I make the same recommendation to my students and parents with students in the class of 2025 today, which is get finished on the old test. So I'm recording this in May. There's going to be a June SAT. There's going to be an August SAT. There's going to be October, November, December SATs. And if you're in the class of 2025, you can get finished with the SAT on the current test and not be a guinea pig for that new curriculum if you get moving this summer, if you take your first SAT at the end of August, and then you have 2 or 3 more chances to take the test again, maximize your super score, and send that score to college. If you wait, then you will be taking the new test. And then you will be working with a teacher, maybe me, maybe somebody else, who is trying out new curriculum for maybe the first time. So I'm going to make more videos as we get closer to that new changing digital SAT. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us at 732-556-8220. We are here to help.